are some of the ways you can secure these or get these off markets in your inbox or on your phone? What are some of those ways?
Okay, well, let's start with what sort of happens for most buyers. I talk to kind of 10 new buyers a day normally that are coming into the marketplace right across, as I say, nationwide, all different price points. There's a couple of themes and patterns that happens with most buyers that have been looking for, I'd say, north of 8 weeks. And I really think that if you study a market hard and you're active in that market, you shouldn't be in the market for much more than 8 weeks in total. That's from a standing start, okay? And I think that for most people across most assets, unless you're trying to buy an acreage or a penthouse or a garden apartment or something that's a bit specific in a certain location, and that can definitely be more challenging to find the right property. So the two key things that I think buyers make a mistake with, and this is, I think, important to lead into this off market and certainly to address Joey's point just then about agents pricing these things high, is that buyers make the mistake of coming to a conclusion of a fair price to pay for a property based on the agent's marketing price or a guide price or a list price, like Joey's just said just then. So that's the number one mistake they make. So they either overpay or they undercook it based on where they think their perception of price is, and they miss those properties, and that adds to the days on market. So that's one issue, I think. The other thing is they go in and they think that they're doing something unique or special when they're not. And that is going to talk to agents at open homes or going on their database when on average an Australian real estate agent meets about 200 new buyers a week. Okay. So when they're meeting that many people through all their open for inspections or all their inquiries, phone, SMS, email, the numbers are staggering. You know, it's not unusual for us. I know we don't want to talk about Perth all night. But it's not unusual for some of our clients to say, I went to an open home in Perth on the first Saturday and there was 100 people at the open for inspection, right? So there's some crazy numbers. So everybody is doing the same thing. They're walking in and saying, do you have anything off market or pre-market? And can I go on your database? And they're getting spammed with their email newsletter, spammed with their bullshit properties that don't fit the brief, spammed with all their sold properties that are no interest to them. And they're not getting really any pre or off market opportunities unless they're the ones that are going out in the newsletter like Joe just suggested, which are just baited to sell off market quickly if some donut's going to pay some overinflated price. So that's really the issue, is you've got to get it through to yourself. And this is what leads into what we're going to coach, that by doing those steps, you're not special, you're no different to everyone else, and you're not going to get these opportunities. So at the heart of it, if I put my agent hat back on, the only buyers that I'm going to work with, because I've got a full dance card every Saturday, I might have 6, 7 open for inspections, which means auction campaigns, vendors to manage, 200 buyers a week to discuss properties with. I don't have time to service all the people that are unqualified. So I'm going to cherry pick the people that are in front of me to do deals. So I'm going to sell those negotiations during the week. I'm going to close my auctions on Saturday. And all of my underbidders from both of those outcomes, I'm going to go and match up with my database to increase my take-home pay. That's how it works. There'll always be pre and off market because the agents are driving that to earn more money. Okay. So they're going to cherry pick those buyers. What I'm going to show you now is to how to get on that cherry pick list without becoming one of those people that's got to miss up to 5 times to go through this process to get in front of these people to show them that you're a real qualified buyer. So it's a simple free thing that everyone can go and do. And the goal is to get on the list of all of the agents that service those local areas and be taken seriously so it can create deal flow. You can build rapport with those agents, and it's a way to consistently stay in contact with them ongoing until you buy a property. But there's a couple of key things that are going to come out of this: simplicity, honesty, consistency. You know, you've got to be, and responsiveness. I think, you know, really crystal clear communication. So it's not just go and take this and deploy it once. It's really understanding why this system works. And it's super simple. And it sounds too simple to be true, but it's not. And as I said to you, just make sure that anyone listening, it's not a silver bullet. There's no guarantee to anything in property. But if you do this, at least you know that you've done everything you can, whilst you're also watching realestate.com or Domain, because 60 to 80% of property is going to sell in that method, whether you like it or not. Up to 40% is going to sell pre or off market. So you have to have a strategy to do both at the same time.
One question I have around that is there's 120 agents that have purchased or sold a property, but it's kind of like the 80-20 rule, right? 20% of them are the real ones that consistently keep deal flow. How do you prioritize? Because I've only got so many hours in the day. How do I actually make sure that I'm spending my time on the good folk rather than the bad folk? How do you determine what's a good agent to
Great question. Great question. And that doesn't come up very much, but that's a question from someone that kind of understands how the market moves, right? So there's going to be exactly that 80-20 rule. And the mistake that buyers make is that they deal with the 20% of people that are the busiest, because that's who they see and is visual in front of them with the most listings on the market, or they see it open for inspections. And they're the people that I just told you before are basically too busy. I'm dealing with 200 people, running all my campaigns, cherry picking my own buyers from my own underbidding, properties. And I don't say I don't need you, but I don't need you as much as the agents that aren't in the top 20%, right? And this is where the gold lies. So that's a very good question to analyze, because it's exactly why this system works better. So when we get to a position where we know there's 180 agents in Rockingham, for example, and most people are looking in 2 suburbs as a minimum, so there's probably 250 people, let's just say, that you're going to talk to, we extract all 250 of their details. So for 5.5 years, we've done that manually. It's time consuming, it takes hours, but you only have to do it once, and then you can send the same list out every week. But we actually digitized this before Christmas. We've got a digital product where one touch of a button and we can extract all that agent information. But let's just call it 250 people.
You wouldn't want to spam an agent. Surely not. They would.
Well, we get that.
Yeah, sorry.
We get that list of 250, and we hit them with your BCC email with those 5 non-negotiables every single Tuesday until you buy a property. Now, the reason sounds dumb. Tuesday, just trust me, we've had 6 years of research with this. That's the best opening rate. And we surveyed agents as to how they want to receive this, and they want to receive it on email. So there is no fluff that goes with this email. There is no, hey, my name's Jeff. I've got 2 boys. I love Bitcoin. I'm really into weird shit after dark. And I want a blue kitchen and a pink door. Like, they don't care. Okay. That is brutal thing, and they don't care. So make it as simple as possible, which is why I came up with the whole bullet point thing, because it keeps people honest to just limit the amount of words that they're going to use. So send that list every week without fail. We've found that will start to snowball over time. So there's lots of examples where we send it, and within an hour, 2 hours of it going out for the first time, a client will get a response and say, okay, I found a property that's seriously interested, or I've been sent 3 or 4 that look like they're in the sweet spot for me. It doesn't always happen like that. You'll hear me say this all the time. There's no hard sell on this. There's no silver bullet. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but we play the law of percentages here. And more often than not, for our clients, right across all price points, right across any busy market, anywhere in the country, this works. So even in Perth, even in Toowoomba, even in Townsville right now, where it's super competitive, we still get pre and off market listings. And it's about creating those opportunities, and again, resting at night knowing that you're doing everything you possibly can to unearth these properties. So we start to get responses from that, and it snowballs over time as you build rapport. To your point, are you calling spamming?
So we had 100 and 250 emails out. Are you then, because that's one click of a button. I mean, manually doing it sucks. Yeah, you got to do it. But once you've got the list, you just keep rinse and repeat. That's not very much work. Like, are we calling all of these agents? How do you determine who the hot ones are and who the not ones are to actually call and spend your time on the tasks that do take your time?
So you'll see from the email responses, and I suggest that you wait 2 weeks before you call anyone, because you'll see from the responses who's actually taking this seriously or not in terms of giving you deal flow or responding to the email. So I would start by talking to those people before you go through a list of 250 people. And you'll see as well that some of the agents haven't got a huge amount of listings. But the gold, again, is in the people that have got the time to do this. So the top 20 agents, or top 20%, don't have time to take this list because they've got their buyers and their underbidders already. Some of the really good agents do. Some of them have got teams of staff that will go through and call us back and go through that process. But it's often, agent 31 and agent 77 that respond, because they're sitting at their desk going, I've got an open database at work. I know where these people are. They've clearly defined what they're looking for. I know this exists, and I haven't got a listing, and I've got lots of time to phone. And this is a $20,000 commission check if I can just pick up the phone and get a listing for it. So they're the ones that actually service us with these listings more often than not. So it doesn't always have to be the top agents. It can be some of the lower tier agents that do the work for you.
Let's talk about buying before auction. Let's talk about buying before auction, because there's a property.
Well, let me go.
Okay, you roll with you.
Tell me your example, and then I'll unpack that.
Situation is, there's an auction 22nd of February, which is a couple of Saturdays away. It's an amazing property. I love it. It's the best fit. Perfect for me. It's only just come online right now. The guide price is 800,000. and I want to buy it. I haven't visited
Okay.
it yet, but I do want to buy it.
Cool. Okay. So let's start with a few things that you have to do no matter how the property is being sold. Because I think this is a good sort of what's the foundation that you should go everywhere before we hit this pre-auction spiel. Because I think they feed into each other. So you should never be looking for property unless you can accurately analyze the market value in real time. Okay. So that's the first thing that you need to understand the fundamentals of price and what's happening in your local market, and be a local area specialist before you start actively chasing properties to buy. So, and talking to agents and wasting their time. So accurate analysis skills is key to me that everyone has to have as a base. Second thing is
there an indication when people can know that they've done that? Or because how do you know when you've got that nailed?
Well, even as a real estate agent, for me, I've spoken about this with you guys previously, I've gone back and researched how many properties I'd looked at in the flesh, not online, in the flesh, and I would typically look at about 50 open for inspections or private viewings before I bought every time I bought, and I'm up to property 29 of buying and flipping. So I've done that a lot, and now it's getting easier and easier because I'm staying in one location and I don't have to look at as many properties, but I also understand the fundamentals of that marketplace. I'm at ninja level on realestate.com. Like, I look at the thing about 15 times a day. You know, it's ridiculous because I'm just obsessed with, you know, what's happening in the market, and I love property. So unless you're going to be obsessed like that, either outsource it to someone that understands how to analyze property or learn the skills to do it. And I think if you had 4 weeks, 4 weeks, and 4 weeks of so we're getting off track here, but this is a good question. So if you're going to understand how to analyze what's happening in your marketplace, if you're looking for a 3-bedroom house, I would look at every 2-bed and 4-bed house, as well as all the 3 beds, to understand where the value pocket is, because you might realize that you're better off buying a 4-bed for $20,000 more, you know, or it's the gap between the 2-bed and the 3-bed is just not worth it. You know, it's a $200,000 gap when you probably only need a 2-bed, and it's going to cripple you in the mortgage if you get to a 3. So I'd look at 2 and 4-bed. Either side of it is how I always did it to educate myself on where a market's at. Go to every open for inspection you can. Rule out your day. You know, when I buy, I would look at, say, 15 properties in a day when I go into a new location, right? So I just block out a day, hire a car, fly in, whatever it might be, and just hit everything that I possibly can to build rapport with agents, understand different value pockets and locations, how they all sit compared to transport, lifestyle, shops, everything else. And to, you know, really get a sense of what is available in the marketplace, so I don't make a value decision without seeing enough properties. So if you've gone and seen enough properties, you also should be tracking the auctions in real time. So I would be going to auctions, understanding real-time buyer depth, how many people were there at the top end of the auction result. Because when you just look at realestate.com and say on Saturday night at 6 o'clock, when the notification comes through that there was 72% clearance rate across Australia, that's not relevant to what happened in Surrey Hills today. If I look in Surrey Hills and see what happened, you know, 4 out of 7 properties might have sold, and you can see the prices, but you can't formulate, looking at a number, how many people were bidding, how competitive it was, and what's the strength of the market. You need to be there. When you're there, you might realize there was one goose who bought the property. No one else bid past 700,000. They went to 750, and then they bid against themselves and paid 820 when they didn't need to. Like, and that happens just constantly in every market across Australia, every single auction day. So you need to understand what's happening in the marketplace and what the buyer depth is. So I got a little bit off track there, but they're the simple things that I would do to be consistent.
One of the things I have is information gathering during that initial call. So we're talking about that initial call that you jumped in, and you kind of jumped into a role play pretty quickly into about, you know, your situation and everything, but you didn't gather the information about the property. What information do you, because a lot can be done online already beforehand. How do you gather that information and try and keep it relevant in a negotiation?
Yep. So a couple of things that I would use.
A
couple of things that I would use in that situation. I just did this tonight on another deal in Sydney and Elizabeth Bay, was to call the agent and say, so it goes to auction. Again, I won't go into the details because I don't want to blow up my live deals that are in play with anyone listening or knows of these people.
Hopefully there's a few deals going on in Elizabeth Bay at the moment, but yeah.
I hope so. Otherwise, there's nothing to hide here anyway. But I always ask, is your vendor ready to sell? Okay. Because if you're going to go headlong into making an offer and then they turn around and say to you, well, mate, it's a divorce. It's got to go to auction. Like, it's absolutely going to auction. It's a trust sale. It's a deceased estate.
Yeah.
You know, you've just put your best cards on the table and I'm just going to use that against you now for the next 3.5 weeks. Like, there's no point.
Yep.
So is your vendor ready to sell? And a lot of the times the agents will say to me, mate, they're not. Like, I want to get this thing sold just like you do, but they're not ready. Like, the wife hates the husband. The husband wants 2 million. The wife will take 1.8 this afternoon. Like honestly, if you give me an offer now, it's just going to screw up the whole thing. Just let me run Saturday. Let me do the vendor meeting Monday night, and then give me that offer. They'll actually lead me to the finish line. Yep. And because they want to get deals done, right? They want to get things done. So if you ask those questions, you'll get the right answers, and you've got to be a good listener and ask them at the right time. So is your vendor ready to sell? And then I'll always ask, what's the best offer you've rejected to date? Now that pins them down, right? It's not, have you had any offers? Who cares if they've had 100 or 1? It doesn't make any difference. How many contracts you've got out? Who cares? It's irrelevant because people just collect them like, stickers. It's like, what's the best offer you've rejected to date? Now, if the agent stalls and then has to come up with a solution to that answer, you can bet they're lying, right?
Yeah.
And a good agent will just say to you, 1.8, we're not back. They're not selling at 1.8. It needs to be better than that. Or something like that. They know what the best offer is, right? And they'll tell you if they're confident that they can control the negotiation. So ask, what is the best offer you've rejected to date?
How do you
Make
know
sense?
when they're lying on that situation? Like,
because people stall, and if they have to, like, it's just a thing that you learn over time, and hopefully most people know this in terms of dealing with people and having relationships. But if someone has to sort of stop and think of an answer, they're lying, I think, in most instances. Not, you can never be 100% sure, but just, reading this over, a whole career of doing this, you get a really good sense of who's telling the truth and who's fibbing. And then often I find when people are lying, they give you the most elaborate backstory. And if you ask an agent, have you got other buyers on this? A good agent will just say, yep, 2. Or something, or yep, there's 3 other people, and you actually are in a contract race, and this will probably be sold by tomorrow afternoon. Yeah. A bad agent or a lazy agent or someone that's lying will say, yeah, well, there's a guy in Hong Kong, and he's got a contract, and he's really interested, and he's going to fly in on Friday. And then we've got a buyer's agent, and there's a Chinese guy, and like they tell you the whole story, and you're like, mate, like, okay, you lost me at Hong Kong anyway in the first place. Like, I know you're just full of BS. So you get a sense of this. You do it often enough, you get a really good read on people and the game playing that goes on. So
How do you respond when they won't give you what offer they've rejected? Like, how do you respond to that? You just kind of let it slide, or you ask a different way?
I'll ask a different way, but at that first pre-auction call, I probably don't push it, because there's no point until I've got rapport with the agent and I'm further into it, because they're not going to give you that information unless you start to show serious intent to buy the property. So I would circumnavigate back to that later and say, they've seen it. What have you rejected? Where do we need to sit? Where do I have to position Jeff to buy it? What will secure it? All those different questions. And I'll just keep asking those things until they give me some sort of door in, and then I'll smash that door down if we can and try it. But it's as with everything I say with you guys, there's no single thing that works every time, right? It's a numbers game. So it's not about shooting one bullet and getting the result. It's sometimes, you shoot 6 and you get blanks, and you've got to go reload and come at it from a different angle. It's no guarantee it's going to work. That's why you've got to have a big kit to dive into to ask for these things. That's why it's a learned skill.
Yeah, 100%. It's practiced as well. You're so confident. Someone mentioned, you're so confident you've got it down. You got it down pat, but it takes time to develop that.
Here's a good question. What are your tips for winning at auction if you haven't managed to negotiate prior? Have the deepest pockets and your hand up last. No, the only way to win at auction is it's completely out of your control. You don't know how many people are going to compete against you. You don't know how much money they've got. You don't know what the vendor is willing to sell at. So it is a game for mugs, unfortunately, bidding at auction. How do you win at auction without overspending is probably kind of the way to do it. I always position ourselves that if it's within our price parameters and our budget, I get into first position as quickly as possible. I bid really quickly. With speed. So anyone that counter bids me, I bid odd, like weird numbers, not stupid numbers like dickheads on TV, like 888, 171, 222, kind of in 5 cents. But if someone's bidding 800, 820, 840, 860, I'll say 900. like that, because it breaks the momentum up. Someone says 920, I'll say 950 because it's bigger than 20 grand, right? It's 30 grand. So I'm always going at the, a different number to break it up like that. And it's always further than the previous group of numbers. So if it's 20, I offer 30. If it was everyone's going up in 25s, I might offer 40 when I go up. So it's just those little psychological things that kind of say that I'm going to keep bidding here and I'm going to keep bidding really quickly. Before they've even finished the number, I bid over the top of them straight away. And it never works. If they've got more money and they want to spend more money than you, you'll never win. But all you're trying to do is that run them down, that if they are on the edge of going, oh, it's at 900, I'm not sure if I should go to 920 because this dickhead's just going to go to 950 straight away, and they don't, and you buy it for 901. Yep. And instead of having to kind of get pushed another 20 grand or 25 grand potentially, but always get into first position. Yeah.
Blowing them out.
And then don't bid against yourself if you can avoid it.
Yeah. Because you don't want to have a lot of emotional bidding quickly. So you just want to knock out all of those first home buyers with mum and dad right there that know they're not going to be able to afford it. Crush their souls quickly, because mum and dad will get a bit of an ego, and then they will start emotionally. Cobra swipe in.
Cobra boom. Crush their little souls. Yeah, no, I'm just joking, but not really.